Morant with a running start. Elevates. Oh, it dunks. Oh, my goodness.
Tie game in overtime. Gasol will turn his heat. It's gone. Memphis on top. 7-10 remaining. Conley now with three. Counted. A 15-point lead for Memphis. And Blake Griffin gets into it on the floor with Randolph. Hard to tell if there are any punches being thrown under there, but Griffin took acceptance.
Adams going long. Morant. He hit it. John Morant. Insanity.
You gotta be kidding me.
Welcome to Grits and Grinds, a Memphis Grizzlies podcast. Grizzlies win edition. My name is Keith Parish. It was a great weekend for the Memphis Grizzlies. First, on Friday night, the Grizzlies beat the 76ers. They win the DeAnthony Melton homecoming game. Steven Adams, an absolute force in that one. Then on Sunday, the Grizzlies take care of business against the Pistons, where Ja Morant puts on a show in the third quarter and second half. Ja Morant scores a career-high 21 points in a quarter in that third, and the Grizzlies take care of business and improve to 14-9 on the season. It was so spectacular, everything Ja Morant did. I'm actually going to rank the top 10 Ja Morant plays from the second half of that game at the end of the show. I didn't kill myself. Trying to nitpick between all the good plays, but I feel pretty good about the way I ranked them. Let's start with Friday night. Let's start there. We will work our way towards Sunday. It was a solid team victory where you got excellent performances from almost all of the starters. Well, I'll say all of the starters. Ja Morant gave you 28 points, 8 rebounds, and 3 assists. Jaren had a monster game, 22 points, 9 boards, and 4 blocks. Steven Adams, again, like I said, the hero. Steven Adams was ridiculous. 9 points, 16 rebounds, 10 of them on the offensive glass. 6 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks. Steven Adams right now, he didn't play in the game against the Pistons. Maybe it's just a game off because the Grizzlies are playing a back-to-back on Monday night against the Heat. But Steven Adams right now averaging a career high in offensive rebounds per game. Also, Steven Adams, this is from the Steven Adams Stats Twitter account. Joel Embiid is now 1-7 all-time against Steven Adams. Dylan Brooks had a good game. He had 17 points and 4 assists against the Sixers. Conchar was solid. He's been consistent as that glue guy that they need. And then maybe the story of the game, Ja Morant, 28 points, had a huge first half, actually had a pretty rough second half. The story of the game, I think overall, is that the bench performed, that the Grizzlies did not lose the lead with the second unit. The second unit actually probably provided the difference in this game. Like Ja Morant and the starters were negative. Ja Morant had a negative plus-minus. They won. The Grizzlies won the minutes when the second unit was on there. David Roddy led the team, led everyone in the game with a plus 16 plus-minus. That's going to help his net rating that's been way down. But the Grizzlies were able to control this game in the minutes where the Sixers starters were off the court. From a Sixers perspective, you say, all right, we won the minutes when Embiid played. As a Melton obsessive, I say, hey, they won the minutes when Melton played. When Embiid and Melton went to the bench, that's when the Grizzlies dominated, where you got Tyus Jones doing some good stuff. You got a strong game from Roddy. Some of those units that combine first and second unit players, the Brandon and Jaren minutes, which you got to see even more of on Sunday with Steven not playing, but like Dylan and Jaren and Brandon playing with Roddy and Tyus, those minutes were good against the Sixers. And so you finally see that. That's the team victory you need. You do enough with your second unit. You do enough with your other starters, where even when Ja Morant has a 1 for 10, 0 assists second half, it doesn't matter because Steven Adams just really beasted. Like Joel Embiid had a massive game, okay? Massive. 35 points. He had 8 assists, almost got the triple-double, but Steven Adams outplayed him. In the third quarter, Embiid maybe coasted a little bit. and Adams just outworked him over and over. Adams got multiple offensive rebounds on one possession, eventually led to a three-pointer by Conchar. Steven Adams blocked an Embiid three-pointer in that third quarter. Adams stole that inbounds pass, then got a breakaway slam. Yes, Embiid, one of the best players in the NBA, but in this game, he only scored 19 of his 35 with Steven Adams on the court, and in this game, Steven Adams outplayed him. Adams was dominant in this one. Just doing a great job. Sean Coleman, our buddy, gives us the stat that this was just the 7th time ever that a player has amassed 10 or more offensive rebounds, 15 total rebounds, plus gotten 3 steals, 3 blocks, and 5 or more assists. A huge performance from Steven Adams. The Grizzlies also won the fast break points in this game big time. They had a 17-2 advantage in the first half. They just played with more pace. That part of it shows to the issues that the Sixers have with offense. Yes, the Sixers are missing James Harden. They're missing Tyrese Maxey. Their ideal lineup is not starting DeAnthony Melton and Shake Milton, and the Sixers bench gave them nothing. George Niang, horrible game, but the Grizzlies, you played with pace. You got out in transition, then you got those second chance points, and then you get big performances from Jaren and Dylan and Ja, and it's enough to win this game against the Sixers. By the way, for all the DeAnthony Melton heads, go check out the commercial appeal to Michael Cole. Had a thing where he talked to Melton ahead of this game, and Melton just says how much, obviously he loved being in Memphis, loves his teammates, and loves Zach Kleiman, and how on draft night when he got traded, it wasn't like a shock. He was kind of by his phone ready, understanding something could happen, and he has no hard feelings. Again, he said lots of love for Zach Kleiman. That's the guy who gave him his chance and was happy to also go to a contender like the Sixers. So definitely go check out that piece over in the commercial appeal. The only other thing from the Sixers game, there was a weird moment where Doc Rivers wasn't allowed to challenge a call where it looked like the ball went off of Ja Morant. After the game, the officials said they messed up, and they didn't really provide a reason why they didn't let Doc Rivers challenge that. Also, going back to the second unit, as I bounce around my notes, Santi Aldama had a really big game. The team overall got 11 blocks. You got 4 from Jaren, all in the second half. You got 3 from Steven Adams. And Santi Aldama off the bench got 3 blocks, also 13 points and 3 assists. The Grizzlies, by the way, improved to 6-0 on the season in Friday night home games. So that Friday night energy has definitely paid off as the Grizzlies have bolstered their record by winning all of their Friday night home games. Those are games against the Rockets, Hornets, Timberwolves, Thunder, Pelicans, and Sixers. By the way, the Grizzlies have a home game this Friday night, a rematch with the Detroit Pistons. Tickets are still available, but if you're in the Middle Tennessee area, why don't you come on down to Noble's Beer Hall in Nashville, where I will be hosting a watch party along with John and Chuck from Fast Break Breakfast. We will be giving away Grizzlies prizes and watching the rematch of Grizzlies Pistons. The game starts at 7 p.m. Again, come to Noble's Beer Hall on Main Street. We will be there having some fun. So the Grizzlies get this big win on Friday night. Then they have to travel and play this 5 p.m. Sunday matinee. Again, it's a familiar routine. I talked about it last week on Monday's show. Last week, they took care of business on Sunday. This week, they do the same thing, and the story is Ja Morant. 33 points and 10 assists, including that 21-point third quarter. After being a negative in plus-minus against the Sixers, he was a plus 21 in his 35 minutes. This was the first 30-point and 10-assist game of the season for Ja Morant. It was the 11th of his career. Every other player in Grizzlies franchise history has 8 30-point, 10-assist games. Ja Morant has 11. Now, one storyline outside of Ja Morant putting on a show in this one was Steven Adams was unavailable, so for podcasters like myself that are maybe too obsessed with lineup data, I was like, oh, we finally get to see the Grizzlies start Dylan and Jaren and Brandon. When Steven Adams was announced being out for the game, I legit wondered if Brandon would get the start or if they would go with Aldama. I really wanted them to go with Brandon. Part of my thinking was, and I almost put this on Twitter, like if you don't start Brandon now, you're never ever going to start Brandon. Like if you don't trust Brandon enough to see these lineups together or see this front court combination go against starters and even go against a Pistons starting lineup that, truthfully, not that strong. No Cade Cunningham. Yes, they beat the Mavericks with this same lineup, but like the Pistons were starting, Marvin Bagley. So like if you're not going to put Jared and Brandon up against this, maybe you never would. And so as a reminder, I think we all agree, most fans agree, that probably the Grizzlies' best 5 players. I mean, I guess the Steven Adams Twitter account does not agree. But at least a lot of us think that the Grizzlies' quote-unquote death lineup, eventually, it's going to be Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, Dylan Brooks, Brandon Clark, and Jaren Jackson Jr. I talked about it last year on the show. They didn't get to play together because of injuries in the regular season. In the postseason, they actually played together and were awesome. They were a plus 31 points per 100 possessions when they all played together. And so finally getting to see it in the regular season, that's the thing I look forward to the most this offseason. I want to see more Ja, Desmond, Dylan, Brandon, and Jaren together. And yeah, Desmond's not there, but this was a pretty good replication of this. And it worked out great. And again, I think it might be the Grizzlies' best possible unit. The versatility on defense, it's something that Steven Adams does not provide you. Yes, Steven Adams owns the glass. Yes, this lineup without Steven Adams, probably bad at rebounding still. So maybe the Grizzlies' best possible lineup will include Steven Adams. But I have been obsessed with this particular lineup, and it was good to see it. You're playing a Pistons team where you outmatched them, but they took care of business. They got up to a big lead early. The starters raced out to a 21-10 lead before there were any subs. The Grizzlies scored 40 points in that first quarter. And Brandon, who in previous starts has maybe disappointed, Brandon came up big time. 14 points, 14 rebounds, also got 2 assists. Part of it also is, if you go back to last year's playoffs, yes, they had a great net rating when they all played together, but if you remember, they never started it. Once Steven Adams got kind of exposed, I'll put that in air quotes, exposed, in game 1 against the Timberwolves, they started starting Xavier Tillman. Now, the efficacy of that wore off in my estimation, and the Grizzlies started losing the starts of the first half and the second half when Xavier Tillman was out there, and I was screaming, why aren't we starting Brandon and Jaren? Why aren't we assuring ourselves we get these Brandon and Jaren minutes? The coaching staff would eventually usually get to Brandon and Jaren closing games, but sometimes there were foul trouble or whatever that led us to not get there. So it was a particular frustration, which again feeds into me being excited that we got to see it against the Detroit Pistons. And it was very exciting to see Brandon respond with a big game. Now, so far this season, very, very small sample size, but Ja and Dylan and Jaren and Brandon, those 4 guys have been on the court together for 20 minutes. They've won those minutes by 14 points. So off to a very, very good start. Jaren Jackson Jr. continues an awesome season. He had 22 points, 3 boards, and a block against the Pistons. He almost got an assist. I was joking about this. He got double-teamed off the dribble and found Brandon Clark. Brandon Clark got fouled, so that should be counted as an assist. But Jaren, as well as he's played all year, he actually only has 1 assist in 8 games, which is comically low. Yes, we're not asking Jaren to pass, but when he puts the ball on the floor and drives towards the bucket, he has gotten a little too focused on getting his shot up because double teams are coming, and he does not respond well. He needs to pass that a little bit more, but that's a nitpick. His stats are so good right now. That's fine, Jaren, if you never pass the basketball. In 8 games this year, Jaren is now up to 19.4 points per game, 6.6 rebounds per game, 2.9 blocks per game, and 0.9 steals per game. That is in only 26 minutes per game. Averaging 19 and 7, rounding up on the rebounds, and 3 blocks in just 26 minutes per game is outrageous. He's making 48.6% of his field goal attempts. 33% from the 3-point line. That's fine. I'll take it. 6.1 free throw attempts. It's a very, very, very small sample size, but that would be by far a career high. By the way, 0.1 assists per game would be a career low by a lot. But Jaren has been, I think, everything you've asked for. I'm not going to say dreamed of because I dream big, but he's been spectacular this season. Dylan Brooks in the game against the Pistons made 5 3-pointers. He was 1 off his career high 3-pointers. He finishes with 22 points and 5 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals. In Dylan's last 8 games, he is averaging 4.4 assists per game against just 1.8 turnovers per game. You absolutely will live with that. The starters, by the way, Ja, Conchar, Dylan, Jaren, and Brandon scored 102 points. Not as much of a scoring contribution from the bench in this one. Only 4 guys played off the bench. LaRavia was unavailable with a sore foot, so he was out along with Steven Adams. So they played Tyus and Roddy and Santi and Xavier Tillman off the bench. Those guys were solid, particularly Xavier Tillman. Had a great game. The Michigan State product, maybe had fun returning home to Michigan and Detroit, and he had, in his 18 minutes, he scored 6 points, had 4 rebounds, 1 alley-oop to Ja Morant, also 2 steals and 2 blocks. Also, Tillman made a huge 3. This one, despite all the highlight plays, the Grizzlies did not dominantly put away the Pistons or anything. They did not win this one going away. They actually needed that big 3-pointer from Tillman. They needed some quality plays in the fourth quarter to take care of business. Parts of this one felt like, hey, the Grizzlies are winning by 20, they're going to win by 30. They did not. And so they needed the contribution from the bench. They needed Roddy to knock down his 3. Roddy was only 1 for 5 from the field, but he's now made an above the break 3 in both of his last 2 games. And in Roddy's last 10 games, he's shooting 38% on all 3-pointers. So you love to see that. Aldama picked up 2 more blocks in this one. Also, Santi, 5 assists. Have a game, Santi. Santi's doing good work off of the bench. So the thing about the Grizzlies having a big lead, going back to that, John Schumann on the NBA.com's power rankings, he pointed out this very intriguing stat that the Grizzlies are the only team in the NBA right now that has not lost when they've been ahead by double digits. Yes, they've blown leads. We know they've given up leads when they've been up by 10 or more and then eventually win the game, but they are 14-0 when they get up by double digits this year. They're also strangely 0-9 when they don't get ahead by 10 points. If they don't get a double-digit lead, so far this season, the Grizzlies haven't won a game. That is very, very, very strange. Let's now take a break, and then we'll come back with me ranking Ja's top 10 plays from the second half against the Pistons, and also some breaking news about a signature shoe. Guarantee the gift of Grizz this holiday season with 6-game holiday packs starting at just $26 per game. Holiday packs feature the best matchups and giveaways, including the Warriors, Lakers, Mavs, and more. So skip the mall, avoid the crowds, and warm up this season with the Grizzlies' 6-game holiday pack today. Call 901-888-HOOP or shop online now at grizzlies.com. All right, so here we go, a non-scientific ranking of Ja Morant's 10 best plays from the second half of the game against the Pistons. Number 10, honestly, I got like a 3-way tie. I was picking between this okay skip pass to Jaren for a 3-pointer, a pretty nice pick and roll find to Xavier Tillman, or Ja's first bucket of the second half where he got an and one, but the shot was goaltended. All right, the and one, I felt weird including a goaltend on a top 10 list. The pick and roll was probably a better pass, but because of Jaren making a 3-pointer, I thought the 3-pointer maybe made a better highlight. So for number 10, I'm going to go with Ja finding Jaren on the wing for a 3-pointer. Number 9, I got Ja Morant picking up that loose ball before he throws the alley-oop to Santi Aldama. Aldama, who attempts and makes a reverse layup. Someone asked me to look up the Grizzlies record when Aldama makes a reverse dunk. I'm going to. I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to. It feels like it's very, very high. And I'm going to include this year and last year, but I feel like the Grizzlies usually win when Aldama makes a reverse dunk. By the way, Aldama tried to baptize Isaiah Stewart into the Church of Santi and almost got it. Aldama did a thing where like he looked to the wing and then rose up so big, and Stewart's a pretty solid shot blocker, so he did not complete the play, but kudos to Aldama for going for it. But anyway, the ninth best Ja Morant play from the second half was him picking up the ball, pushing the break, and throwing an alley-oop to Aldama. The eighth best Ja Morant play was when Xavier Tillman threw the alley-oop to Ja Morant. Tillman chases down a loose ball rebound, puts the ball on the floor. Good job, Tillman, and throws the alley-oop. Spectacular stuff, but also just the eighth best play from the second half of the last game. For the seventh best Ja play, I got the blow-by, scoop and score and one from early in the third quarter. Dillon swings the ball to Ja. He just explodes towards the basket. Maybe a travel. Possibly he took off before, or he lifted his pivot foot before the ball goes down, but we don't care here. It was a spectacular finish, but not even a top 5 best play from the second half for him. Number 6 play. The coast-to-coast finish to end the third quarter. He goes end-to-end in just a few seconds before finishing with a lefty layup. Jalen Duren, nothing he could do about it. The fifth best play. This is seconds before his coast-to-coast layup. He did the 2-for-1, which he executed perfectly by knocking down a 34-foot pull-up three-pointer. So he hits the pull-up three-pointer with, just over 30 seconds left. Incredible deep range. He's laughing because he knows he's on fire. And then he follows that up with that coast-to-coast layup. The fourth best play, and this is where maybe, we can start arguing. I accept arguments. I'm not going to dogmatically stand by these selections. But I think the fourth best play was where he blows by Corey Joseph and gets fouled by Duren. It's a spectacular finish. You can hear a fan, I assume, close to the court just yelling, "Lock him down! Lock him down," as if the Pistons are not trying to lock him down, but they cannot. So I have the fourth best play as Morant beating Corey Joseph off the dribble. Now, the reason that play maybe could have been higher is because it came right after what I have as the third best play. In isolation, in a vacuum, I do think the step back corner three-pointer where he's up against the shot clock, he does a crossover, step back, drills a three-pointer in Corey Joseph's face. I think on its own, that's a better play than the move he did getting by Joseph and getting fouled at the bucket. However, if you want to say the next play, the fourth best play, the blow-by was a better play because it followed the step back, I actually agree with you there. The fact that lock him down and then he gets the and one after he stuck this three in Corey Joseph's face, yeah, that probably was more incredible. But either way, those are my third and fourth best plays. The number 2 best play from the second half for Ja Morant was just the dunk. The flying dunk takes off so far from the basket. Killian Hayes is pressuring him too much, does not slow him down at all, does not get him off his line. At one point, when Killian Hayes turns his hips, he's like, I don't have a chance. And then we could all see it coming. No one's going to block this. Ja Morant goes flying through the air for a massive dunk. And then the top Ja Morant play from the second half of the Pistons game was the bucket he made in the fourth quarter where he goes up and under and puts English on the basketball where he can absorb some contact. He beats Sadiq Bey. The ball goes high off the glass. How in the world did he do that? How low he brought the ball towards his feet before flipping it back up onto the backboard and having the ball go in. I think that's the best play Ja Morant made in the second half against the Pistons. Absolutely spectacular stuff. It never ceases to amaze me how this team had so few spectacular highlight players for so many years. Yes, we had Sturma Swift who could dunk but wasn't actually good at basketball. Yes, we had Jason Williams, white chocolate, but basically after his extreme highlight plays were over and when he played a slightly more conservative brand of basketball on the Grizzlies, but those don't compare to everything Ja Morant does. Yes, James Johnson had a handful of awesome dunks. Just in this game, Ja Morant put on an absolute show for the Grizzlies. And partially because of that, Nike is giving Ja Morant his own signature sneaker. This is from Shams Charania. This is a somewhat poorly kept secret. It's been rumored for a very, very long time, but Nike makes it official. I guess this doesn't even make it official. Shams Charania has enough intel to break this news that Nike is going to give Ja his own signature shoe in the near future. And part of that is also the Nike severing their relationship with Kyrie Irving. So maybe Ja going to be one of the new faces of Nike. Well deserved for Ja. Anyways, the Grizzlies are back at it quickly on Monday night. A tough game against the Miami Heat. It's a rest disadvantage game for the Grizzlies as they're on the second night of a back-to-back. The Grizzlies are 0-2 in rest disadvantage games so far. It does kick off a 5-game homestand for the Grizzlies. You got to think Bane and Williams are coming back sometime during this homestand. At the very least, I'm crossing my fingers that is the case. Anyways, go support the Grizzlies at a watch party. We got one in Nashville this Friday. Also, if you're in Memphis, go to the games, buy some tickets, support the most exciting basketball team in the NBA. Anyways, I appreciate you listening to this episode. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hope you're having a great Monday. Talk to you soon. Go Grizz.